The morning sun painted the streets of London in golden light as hundreds of people gathered outside St. Mary's Hospital. They had been waiting for hours, some since before dawn, clutching flowers, homemade signs, and cameras. The crowd was buzzing with excitement because they knew something special was about to happen. Prince William and Kate Middleton were inside the famous Lindo wing, and their third baby had just been born. But something felt different this time. The usual cheerful chatter began to fade into an unusual quiet. People looked around at each other with curious expressions, sensing that this moment would be unlike any royal birth announcement they had witnessed before. The experienced photographers who had covered royal events for decades noticed it too. They adjusted their cameras and whispered to each other about the strange energy in the air. Inside the red brick building, behind those famous blue doors, Kate had just given birth to Prince Louis. The delivery had gone smoothly, and both mother and baby were healthy and strong. But the world outside had no idea about the profound emotional moment that was building inside that hospital room. The medical staff moved with their usual professional care, but even they seemed to sense something special was happening. The crowd outside grew larger by the hour. Tourists mixed with longtime royal fans who had followed William and Kate's love story since their university days. Children sat on their parents' shoulders, waving small British flags. Elderly women shared stories of previous royal births they had witnessed. Young couples took selfies against the backdrop of the historic building, where 3 generations of royals had been born. Television crews from around the world had set up their equipment along the sidewalk. Reporters spoke into their microphones in different languages, all telling the same story to their audiences back home. The birth of a new prince was always news, but this felt like something more significant was about to unfold. As the hours passed, the atmosphere became almost electric. People who had never met before began talking to each other, sharing sandwiches and cups of tea. Someone started singing a gentle lullaby, and others joined in softly. The mood was joyful, but also deeply respectful, as if everyone understood they were part of something important. The hospital staff had seen crowds like this before, but they noticed something different about this group. These people were not just curious onlookers or media seeking a story. They seemed genuinely invested in the well-being of the royal family. Many had brought gifts for the baby, flowers for Kate, and cards with heartfelt messages written in careful handwriting. Security officers walked quietly through the crowd, but they found themselves smiling at the positive energy around them. There was no pushing or shoving, no impatient demands for information. Instead, there was a collective sense of anticipation mixed with something deeper. It was as if everyone present understood that they were about to witness a moment that would stay with them forever. The spring air carried the scent of the flowers people had brought. Daffodils, roses, and tulips created a colorful carpet along the hospital entrance. Someone had even brought a small teddy bear wearing a tiny crown, which made everyone around them smile. Children drew pictures with crayons on pieces of paper, creating artwork they hoped to give to the new prince someday. As the afternoon sun began to cast longer shadows, the quiet anticipation grew stronger. People checked their phones for any news updates, but there was nothing official yet. The waiting continued, but nobody complained. Instead, they seemed to understand that some moments are worth waiting for, that some experiences cannot be rushed. The photographers adjusted their lenses one more time. The reporters straightened their clothes and checked their notes. The crowd shuffled gently, making sure everyone had a good view of the hospital doors. Parents lifted their children higher on their shoulders. Everyone held their breath without realizing it. Something was coming. Something beautiful and emotional and real. The air itself seemed to shimmer with possibility, and every person present could feel it in their hearts. They were about to witness a moment that would remind them why the royal family mattered, why love and new life could bring people together, and why sometimes the most powerful moments are the ones that come from the heart. The unexpected silence had settled over them all. And in that quiet space, magic was preparing to unfold. Inside the quiet hospital room, Prince William sat in a comfortable chair beside Kate's bed, holding their newborn son, Prince Louis, for the first time. The baby was perfectly wrapped in a soft white blanket, sleeping peacefully after his arrival into the world just hours earlier. William looked down at the tiny face and felt his heart overflow with a love so powerful it took his breath away. Kate watched her husband with tired but happy eyes. She had just gone through the incredible experience of bringing their third child into the world, but seeing William with their new baby made every moment of pain disappear. The afternoon sunlight streamed through the hospital window, creating a warm golden glow around the small family. Everything felt perfect and peaceful in their private bubble. William gently touched the baby's tiny fingers, amazed at how small and perfect they were. He remembered doing the same thing when Prince George was born, and then again with Princess Charlotte. Each time felt like a miracle, but this moment with Louis felt especially meaningful. He knew this would likely be their last baby, their final time experiencing this incredible joy of meeting a new family member for the first time. Kate shifted slightly in her bed to get a better view of her husband and son together. The sight made tears of happiness form in her eyes. William had always been a wonderful father, but she could see how much he had grown with each child. He was more confident now, more natural in the way he held the baby, and spoke to him in soft, gentle whispers. The room was filled with beautiful flowers that had been sent by family and friends. Bouquets of white roses, pink peonies, and spring daisies filled the air with their sweet fragrance. Cards and messages of congratulations covered a small table, each one expressing love and excitement for the new arrival. But none of those gifts mattered as much as this quiet moment between the three of them. William looked up at Kate and smiled, his eyes bright with unused tears. They had been through so much together since their wedding day. They had learned how to balance their royal duties with being parents. They had supported each other through the challenges of raising children in the public eye. Now, with their third child in their arms, they both felt overwhelmed by gratitude for their journey together. Kate reached out and touched William's hand as he held the baby. Without words, they both understood that this was one of those moments they would remember forever. The hospital room felt sacred, like a special place where miracles happened and families were born. They had welcomed all three of their children in this same wing of the hospital, and each time had been magical in its own way. The baby stirred slightly in William's arms, making the tiniest sound that melted both parents' hearts. William began to rock gently, instinctively knowing how to comfort his son. Kate watched with wonder at how naturally fatherhood came to her husband. He was not just the future King of England in this moment. He was simply a devoted father, completely focused on the precious life in his arms. They talked quietly about their other children, Prince George and Princess Charlotte, who were at home waiting to meet their new baby brother. They imagined how excited the children would be, how gentle Charlotte would want to be with the baby, how protective George would become as the big brother. The thought of their complete family together filled them both with joy. As the afternoon continued, they made plans for leaving the hospital and presenting their son to the world. But neither of them was in any hurry to leave this peaceful sanctuary. They wanted to hold on to this private time for as long as possible, knowing that once they stepped outside, their lives would become public again. In that quiet room, surrounded by love and new life, William and Kate felt truly blessed. As the time approached for them to leave the hospital, Prince William stood by the window looking out at the crowd of people waiting below. He could see the sea of faces, the colorful flowers, and the cameras all pointed toward the building. His heart began to race as he thought about the moment they would step outside and present their new son to the world. Kate was getting ready, fixing her hair and putting on the beautiful blue dress she had chosen for this special day. She looked radiant, despite having given birth just hours earlier. The hospital staff had been wonderful, helping her prepare and making sure both she and baby Louis were ready for their public appearance. But something was stirring in William's mind. As he watched the patient crowd below, he felt a deep appreciation for these people who had waited so long just to share in their joy. Many of them had been there since early morning, standing in the spring sunshine with hopeful faces and kind hearts. They deserve more than just a quick wave and a hurried exit. William turned to Kate and shared an idea that surprised even him. Instead of following the usual royal protocol of a brief formal appearance, he wanted to take time to really connect with the people who would come to celebrate with them. He wanted to let their genuine emotions show, to share their real happiness instead of hiding behind the typical reserved royal behavior. Kate paused in her preparations, touched by her husband's suggestion. She had always admired his thoughtful nature, but this idea showed how much he had grown as both a person and a future leader. The thought of sharing their authentic joy with the world felt right, even if it broke from tradition. They discussed how this would be different from their previous hospital appearances. When Prince George was born, they had been nervous first-time parents, focused on getting through the moment. With Princess Charlotte, they had been more confident but still quite formal. Now, with Prince Louis, they felt ready to show the world who they really were as a family. William called his protection officer and explained that they wanted to change their exit plan slightly. Instead of the usual quick presentation and departure, they wanted to take their time on the hospital steps. They wanted to really see the people who had waited for them, to acknowledge their support properly, and to let their gratitude shine through naturally. The protection officer was initially concerned about security, but he could see the sincerity in William's request. After discussing the details, they agreed on a plan that would allow the royal couple more time with the crowd while still keeping everyone safe. Kate finished getting ready and picked up baby Louis, who was sleeping peacefully in his white blanket. She looked at William and nodded, letting him know she was ready for whatever this moment would bring. They both understood that once they stepped outside, they would be sharing not just their new baby, but their hearts with the world. William took a deep breath and made one final decision that would make this day truly special. He decided that no matter what happened, he would not hide his emotions. If he felt overwhelmed by gratitude, he would show it. If he felt moved by the crowd's support, he would express it. This was their moment to be real, to be human, to be themselves. Kate smiled at her husband's courage and felt her own resolve strengthen. They would face this moment together, as they always did, but this time they would let the world see the love and joy that filled their hearts. They were ready to step outside and share the most authentic version of themselves they had ever shown in public. The decision was made, and everything was about to change. The blue hospital doors slowly opened, and the waiting crowd held its breath in anticipation. Prince William appeared first at the top of the stone steps, and immediately everyone could see that something was different about him. His face was glowing with an emotion that seemed to radiate from deep within his heart. This was not the usual composed royal expression they were used to seeing. William paused at the top of the steps, taking in the incredible sight before him. Hundreds of people stretched out in front of the hospital, their faces turned up toward him with expressions of pure joy and excitement. The sea of flowers, flags, and homemade signs created a colorful carpet of love and support that took his breath away. For a moment, William seemed completely overwhelmed by what he was seeing. These were not just curious onlookers or people seeking entertainment. These were individuals who had given up their day to share in his family's happiness. Many had traveled long distances just to be part of this moment. Some had waited since before sunrise, standing patiently with hope in their hearts. Then Kate appeared beside him, and the crowd's excitement grew even stronger. She looked absolutely radiant, glowing with the special light that new mothers seemed to carry. In her arms, wrapped in a soft white blanket, was baby Prince Louis, making his first appearance to the world. Kate's smile was so genuine and full of joy that it seemed to light up the entire street. The couple stood together at the top of the steps, and instead of the usual quick acknowledgement and departure, they lingered. They were taking in the magnitude of the moment, feeling the love and support that surrounded them from every direction. The crowd below seemed to sense that this was going to be different from other royal appearances they had witnessed. William looked out over the faces in the crowd, and his eyes began to fill with tears. He was seeing elderly women who had followed the royal family for decades, young families with children on their shoulders, teenagers who had skipped school to be there, and people from all walks of life united in their shared excitement for the new prince. Kate held baby Louis closer to her chest, protecting him while also wanting to share him with all these wonderful people who had come to celebrate his arrival. She could feel the genuine warmth and love coming from the crowd, and it moved her deeply. This was not just duty or obligation. This was a real connection between her family and the people they served. The photographers below were capturing every moment, but even they seemed caught up in the emotion of the scene. Many had covered dozens of royal events, but they could tell this one was special. The usual formal distance between the royal family and the public was dissolving before their eyes. William turned to look at Kate and the baby, and his face showed such pure love and pride that many people in the crowd began to tear up themselves. This was not just a prince and duchess presenting their child. This was a mother and father, overwhelmed with gratitude and joy, sharing the most precious moment of their lives with people who cared about them. The spring sunlight seemed to create a golden glow around the small family, making the moment feel almost magical. The baby stirred slightly in Kate's arms, and both parents looked down at him with such tenderness that the crowd fell completely silent, not wanting to disturb the sacred feeling of the moment. Kate looked up at William and whispered something that made him smile through his tears. Then they both looked back at the crowd, and their faces showed such appreciation and happiness that everyone present knew they were witnessing something truly special. This was not just a photo opportunity or a formal presentation. This was a moment of pure human connection, love, and gratitude that would stay with everyone forever. The first glimpse had exceeded every expectation, and the best was yet to come. What happened next surprised everyone watching, including the seasoned photographers who had covered royal events for many years. William, still holding baby Louis carefully in his arms, leaned close to Kate and whispered something in her ear that made her face light up with laughter. The sound of her genuine joy carried across the crowd, creating ripples of happiness that spread through every person present. Then, in a move that completely broke royal protocol, William and Kate began to wave not with the usual polite, restrained gestures, but with real enthusiasm and heartfelt gratitude. Their waves were full of life and appreciation, reaching out to every section of the crowd, as if they were greeting old friends rather than strangers. Kate began pointing to different groups of people in the crowd, making sure to acknowledge everyone who had come to share in their special day. She spotted the children who had been lifted onto their parents' shoulders and gave them special attention, waving directly at them with a warm smile that made the little ones giggle with delight. William noticed an elderly woman near the front of the crowd who had been there since early morning. She was holding a beautiful bouquet of roses and had tears streaming down her cheeks. He looked directly at her and called out loudly enough for many to hear, "Thank you so much for coming." His voice was filled with such genuine appreciation that the woman began crying even harder, but with joy rather than sadness. The couple continued to scan the crowd, their eyes taking in every face, every sign, every flower that had been brought in their honor. Kate saw a group of teenage girls who had clearly skipped school to be there, and instead of disapproving, she gave them a conspiratorial smile and a special wave that made them scream with excitement. William shifted baby Louis to one arm so he could wave more freely with the other. The baby remained peacefully asleep, completely content in his father's secure embrace. Several times William called out "thank you" to different sections of the crowd, his voice carrying clearly across the street and touching the hearts of everyone who heard it. Kate noticed the hospital staff who had gathered at the windows behind them to watch the historic moment. She turned and waved to them too, acknowledging the wonderful care they had received during their stay. The nurses and doctors waved back enthusiastically, clearly moved by the Duchess's thoughtfulness in including them in the celebration. The royal couple's authentic appreciation was so evident and powerful that the crowd began responding in ways no one expected. People who had been strangers just moments before started talking to each other, sharing their emotions about what they were witnessing. Many began to cry openly, not from sadness, but from being touched by such a genuine display of human connection. One photographer later said he had to stop taking pictures for several seconds because he was too moved by the scene unfolding before him. The usual distance between the royal family and the public had completely disappeared, replaced by something beautiful and real that touched everyone present. William and Kate seemed to have unlimited energy for acknowledging their supporters. They were not in any hurry to leave, despite the fact that Kate had given birth just hours earlier. Instead, they appeared to be drawing strength from the love surrounding them, feeding off the positive energy of the crowd. A small child near the front dropped her toy and began to cry. Kate immediately noticed and made gestures to comfort the little girl, even from her position on the steps. The child's mother was so touched by the Duchess's attention that she began crying too, overwhelmed by the kindness being shown to her family. The unexpected gestures continued as William and Kate made sure every person in the crowd felt seen and appreciated. Their behavior was so different from typical royal appearances that news reporters began commenting in real time about the historic nature of what they were witnessing. This was not just a presentation of the new prince. This was a celebration of love, family, and the incredible bond between the royal family and the people they served. The crowd's reaction to William and Kate's genuine emotions was immediate and overwhelming. What had started as excited cheering and applause transformed into something much deeper and more meaningful. People throughout the gathered crowd began to cry openly, moved not just by seeing the new prince, but by witnessing such an authentic moment of human connection from the royal family. An elderly woman who had been standing near the front barriers since dawn was seen wiping tears from her eyes with a handkerchief. She had followed the royal family for over 50 years, attending countless events, but she later told reporters that nothing had ever moved her like this moment. She called out blessings for the family in a voice shaky with emotion, her words carrying the love and hopes of her entire generation. The children in the crowd seemed to sense the special nature of what was happening, even if they could not fully understand it. Those who had been restless during the long wait suddenly became still and attentive. They began waving their small flags more enthusiastically, their young faces bright with excitement as they witnessed their first truly magical royal moment. Near the back of the crowd, a young mother was holding her own baby while watching William and Kate with their newborn. The sight of the royal couple's obvious joy and love for their child reminded her of her own feelings when her baby was born. Tears streamed down her face as she rocked her own child gently, feeling a connection to Kate that transcended social class and royal status. The atmosphere became electric with positive energy as strangers began reaching out to each other. People who had never met before started sharing tissues and offering comfort to those who were crying happy tears. An older gentleman handed his umbrella to a young woman whose makeup was running from her emotional response to the scene before them. Someone in the middle of the crowd began softly singing a lullaby, and others gradually joined in, creating a gentle chorus that floated through the spring air. The song was not planned or organized. It simply emerged naturally from the collective joy and love that everyone was feeling. Even people who did not know all the words hummed along, adding their voices to the beautiful moment. The usually professional camera crews found themselves affected by the emotion surrounding them. Several photographers were seen smiling broadly behind their equipment, caught up in the infectious happiness radiating from both the royal family and the crowd. Some news reporters had to pause their live broadcasts because their voices were catching with emotion as they described what they were witnessing. A group of teenagers who had traveled from another city to be there began hugging each other and jumping up and down with excitement. Their pure joy was contagious, spreading to the adults around them who found themselves laughing and crying at the same time. The teenagers held up a homemade sign that read, "Welcome Prince Louis," in colorful letters, decorated with drawings of baby bottles and teddy bears. In another part of the crowd, a man who had brought his elderly father to see the royal baby was supporting the older man as he wept with happiness. The father had served in the military and had always respected the royal family, but seeing this display of genuine emotion from William and Kate touched something deep in his heart that he had not felt in years. The response was not just emotional, but also deeply respectful. Despite the overwhelming feelings running through the crowd, there was no pushing or shoving to get closer. Instead, people seemed to understand that they were part of something sacred, and they treated the moment with the reverence it deserved. Security officers who had been prepared for crowd control found their services were not needed. The positive energy was so strong that it seemed to bring out the best in everyone present. People were helping each other, sharing snacks and water, and making sure that children and elderly attendees were comfortable and could see properly. The crowd's response created a feedback loop of emotion that seemed to energize William and Kate even more. The more genuine appreciation the royal couple showed, the more the crowd responded with love and support. It became a beautiful cycle of human connection that lifted everyone present to a higher emotional plane. This was no longer just a crowd of spectators. They had become participants in a moment of pure love and joy that would stay with them forever. As Prince William carefully adjusted baby Louis in his arms, making sure the tiny prince was comfortable and secure, something profound began to shift in his expression that observers would later describe as completely transformative. The weight of becoming a father for the third time seemed to hit him all at once, creating waves of emotion that he made no attempt to hide from the watching world. William looked down at his sleeping son, and his face filled with wonder as if he was seeing a miracle for the first time. The baby's tiny fingers were curled around the edge of his white blanket, and William gently touched them with his own finger, marveling at how perfect and small they were. In that moment, he was not the future King of England or a member of the most famous family in the world. He was simply a father, overwhelmed by love for his child. The cameras captured every expression that crossed William's face, and viewers around the world could see the exact moment when his emotions became too powerful to contain. His eyes filled with tears that sparkled in the afternoon sunlight, and he made no effort to blink them away or compose himself according to royal protocol. Instead, he let his feelings show naturally and honestly. William lifted his gaze from the baby to look at Kate, and the love and gratitude in his expression was so clear that many people in the crowd felt as if they were witnessing something almost too personal and beautiful to watch. Kate met his eyes and smiled back at him with such warmth and understanding that their connection was visible to everyone present. Then William looked out at the crowd again, and his face conveyed a message that was clearer than any carefully written royal statement could ever be. His expression said everything about love, family, gratitude, and the incredible blessing of new life. He seemed to be trying to take in all the faces before him, to somehow personally thank each person who had come to share in their joy. The prince who would one day wear the crown and rule the nation was, in that precious moment, simply a proud and emotional father who was completely overwhelmed by the magnitude of what had just happened in his life. His vulnerability and genuine emotion made him more relatable and human than any carefully planned public appearance ever could have achieved. William began to rock gently from side to side, an instinctive motion that all parents know well. Baby Louis stirred slightly at the movement, but remained peacefully asleep, completely trusting and secure in his father's strong arms. The sight of this powerful man being so tender and careful with his tiny son moved many observers to tears. A breeze rustled through the spring air, and William protectively adjusted the baby's blanket, making sure Louis was warm and comfortable. This simple, fatherly gesture was so natural and caring that it demonstrated perfectly how parenthood had changed and deepened him over the years. He had grown from the nervous first-time father he had been with Prince George into a confident and loving dad. William's pride was evident in every line of his body and every expression on his face. When baby Louis made a tiny sound, William immediately looked down with concern and love, checking to make sure his son was all right. The baby settled back into peaceful sleep, and William's relief and happiness were clear to everyone watching. Kate reached over and gently touched William's arm, and in that simple gesture, their partnership and mutual support became evident to the entire world. They were facing this moment together, as they had faced every challenge and joy in their married life. Kate's touch seemed to steady William, reminding him that he was not alone in his overwhelming emotions. The crowd could sense the sacred nature of what they were witnessing, A father's love for his child is one of the most powerful forces in the world, and seeing it displayed so openly and honestly by someone who usually had to maintain such formal composure was deeply moving for everyone present. William's transformation in those moments on the hospital steps showed the world a side of the royal family that was rarely seen. His tears, his tenderness, and his obvious pride in his growing family revealed the man behind the title, and it was a man worth admiring and respecting not just for his position, but for his heart. Throughout the entire emotional display unfolding on the hospital steps, Kate Middleton remained a perfect example of strength and grace, while also allowing her own deep feelings to show naturally. Despite having given birth to Prince Louis just hours earlier, she stood with remarkable poise and energy, but her tears of pure joy were clearly visible to everyone present, making her seem both royal and wonderfully human at the same time. Kate kept one hand positioned protectively near baby Louis, while using her other hand to wave enthusiastically at the crowd, somehow managing to balance her maternal instincts with her public duties perfectly. Her movements were fluid and natural, showing no signs of the physical exhaustion that would be completely understandable after childbirth. Instead, she seemed to glow with an inner light that came from the happiness filling her heart. What struck observers most powerfully was how Kate seemed to be taking care of everyone around her, even during her own moment of overwhelming personal joy. When she noticed William becoming particularly emotional as he held their son, she moved closer to him and whispered words of encouragement and support. Her gentle touch on his arm provided him with strength and comfort exactly when he needed it most. Kate's attention to the crowd was remarkable in its thoroughness and sincerity. She made eye contact with individuals throughout the gathered people, offering personal smiles and waves that made each person feel specifically acknowledged and appreciated. When she spotted children in the crowd, her face would light up with special warmth, and she would give them extra attention that delighted both the children and their parents. Her grace under such intense public scrutiny was extraordinary to witness. Dozens of cameras were focused on her every movement and expression. Reporters were broadcasting her every gesture to millions of viewers around the world, and hundreds of people were watching her every reaction. Yet Kate appeared completely comfortable and natural, as if she was simply sharing a happy moment with close friends rather than performing for a global audience. Kate noticed when people in the crowd were becoming emotional, and she responded with such genuine warmth and understanding that many felt as if she was personally comforting them. When she saw an elderly woman crying tears of joy, Kate placed her hand over her heart and nodded at the woman, conveying without words that she understood and appreciated the depth of feeling being shown. The new mother's ability to remain gracious and attentive to others while experiencing such personal joy demonstrated the qualities that had made her beloved by people around the world. She somehow managed to be fully present in her own special moment, while also being completely aware of and responsive to everyone else who was sharing in their celebration. Kate's dress, a beautiful light blue that complemented the spring day perfectly, remained neat and elegant throughout the extended appearance. Her hair stayed perfectly styled despite the gentle breeze, and her makeup remained flawless even as happy tears occasionally slipped down her cheeks. She looked every inch the royal duchess while also radiating the natural glow of a new mother. When baby Louis stirred in William's arms, Kate immediately leaned in to check on him, her maternal instincts taking over completely. She made soft, soothing sounds and gentle gestures that helped keep the baby calm and comfortable. Her tenderness with her newborn son while surrounded by crowds and cameras showed how naturally motherhood came to her. Kate's strength was perhaps most evident in how she supported William throughout the emotional moments. When she saw him struggling to contain his overwhelming feelings, she did not try to hurry him along or encourage him to compose himself according to royal protocol. Instead, she gave him the space to feel and express his emotions while providing a steady, loving presence beside him. The Duchess managed to embody both the strength of a royal family member and the tender vulnerability of a new mother without any contradiction between the two roles. She showed that it was possible to be both dignified and deeply emotional, both graceful and completely genuine. Her example in those precious minutes demonstrated how authentic human feeling could enhance rather than diminish royal dignity. Kate's performance on the hospital steps that day became a masterclass in how to handle intense public attention with grace while remaining true to one's authentic self. She proved that strength and sensitivity could exist together beautifully, creating a powerful combination that touched hearts around the world. As Prince William, Kate, and baby Louis finally made their way down the hospital steps toward their waiting car, the impact of those precious 20 minutes on the hospital steps continued to ripple outward like waves spreading across calm water. The crowd remained in place long after the royal family had departed, as if nobody wanted to break the spell of what they had just experienced together. People throughout the gathered crowd were still wiping tears from their eyes and talking excitedly about what they had witnessed. Many described feeling as if they had been part of something truly historic, not because of any official ceremony or formal announcement, but because they had seen real human emotion and connection displayed so openly and beautifully by the royal family. Social media platforms immediately exploded with posts, photos, and videos from the hospital steps. The comments and reactions came from people all around the world who had watched the coverage live on television or streaming services. Words like beautiful, genuine, moving, and real appeared thousands of times as people tried to express how the royal family's authentic emotions had affected them. The photographs and videos captured during those emotional minutes would quickly become some of the most shared and beloved royal images ever taken. Unlike formal portraits or official ceremonies, these images showed unguarded moments of pure human feeling that resonated with people regardless of their opinions about monarchy or royal traditions. The pictures told a story of love, family, and gratitude that everyone could understand and appreciate. News organizations around the world struggled to find the right words to describe what had happened. Veteran royal correspondents who had covered the family for decades said they had never seen anything quite like it. The usual language of royal reporting seemed inadequate to capture the emotional depth and genuine connection that had been displayed on the hospital steps. Within hours, the video clips from the hospital appearance were being watched by millions of people across every continent. Comments poured in from viewers expressing how moved they had been by seeing William and Kate share their joy so openly. Many people said they had found themselves crying along with the royal couple and the crowd, feeling connected to the moment despite watching from thousands of miles away. The impact extended far beyond just royal watchers and British citizens. Parents everywhere related to the overwhelming love and pride that William and Kate had shown for their new baby. The universal nature of parental love had created a bridge between the royal family and ordinary families around the world, making the monarchy feel more accessible and human than ever before. Years later, people who had been present that day would still remember exactly where they were standing when they witnessed that extraordinary moment of connection. The elderly woman who had cried tears of joy would tell their grandchildren about the day she felt personally acknowledged by the future king and queen. The children who had been lifted onto their parents' shoulders would grow up with a positive, warm association with the royal family based on that genuine display of happiness and gratitude. The hospital appearance became a defining moment that showed how the future of the royal family would be different from the past. William and Kate had demonstrated that it was possible to maintain dignity and respect while also being authentic and emotionally open. They had proven that showing genuine feeling could actually strengthen rather than weaken their connection with the people they served. The moment also changed expectations for future royal appearances. People began hoping for and expecting more authentic interactions, more genuine emotion, and more real human connection from royal events. The bar had been raised for what meaningful public engagement could look like in the modern era. Royal historians would later mark this hospital appearance as a turning point in how the monarchy related to the public. The willingness to be vulnerable, to show real emotion, and to break from formal protocol when the moment called for it had created a new model for royal behavior that would influence the family for generations to come. The tears that were shed that day, both by the royal couple and by those who witnessed their joy, became symbols of hope and human connection that transcended all boundaries of tradition, class, and nationality. In a world that often felt divided, this moment had brought people together in shared appreciation for love, family, and the simple miracle of new life.